Ladies and gentlemen, today we step into one of the most baffling, unsettling, and emotionally haunting mysteries of modern American history, a case that refuses to settle quietly into the past no matter how many years go by. This is Inside the Rey Rivera Mystery, The Body in the Belvedere, a story that begins with ambition, friendship, and unanswered fear, and ends on the rooftop of a historic hotel with questions that still echo through every corridor of truth. Our story begins with Rey Rivera, a 32-year-old aspiring filmmaker, writer, and former water polo athlete, a man described by friends and family as intelligent, creative, deeply philosophical, and intensely driven to succeed in the world of film and storytelling, who moved to Baltimore, Maryland, with his wife Allison Rivera after accepting a job connected to his longtime friend Porter Stansberry, a successful financial newsletter publisher, a friendship that had roots going back to their youth and was built on trust, loyalty, and shared dreams of success. On the surface, Rey's life appeared promising, newly married, physically fit, and chasing creative ambitions, yet beneath that surface, subtle cracks began to appear, cracks that would later feel chilling in hindsight, because in the weeks leading up to his death, Rey reportedly became increasingly anxious and paranoid, expressing fear that something bad was going to happen, reacting strongly to loud noises, and even insisting that his wife sleep with the lights on, behavior that seemed out of character for a man once confident and grounded. On May 16, 2006, everything changed when Allison left town for a business trip, leaving Rey alone at home, and that evening, a phone call came into the house, a call so urgent that Rey reportedly rushed out the door without explanation, leaving behind personal items including his glasses, phone charger, and wallet, a decision that would later become one of the many haunting details investigators could never fully explain. 6 days later, after Rey was reported missing and a massive search unfolded across Baltimore, his body was discovered in one of the most shocking locations imaginable, inside a conference room of the historic Belvedere Hotel, directly beneath a small, almost impossibly placed hole in the roof, a hole that appeared as if something had punched straight through it from above. The circumstances were immediately disturbing. Rey's body was badly broken, with injuries consistent with a high-impact fall, yet the location of the hole was far from the edge of the roof, making it nearly impossible for a running jump to reach that spot, even for an athletic man, raising immediate doubts about whether Rey could have jumped on his own. To make matters more disturbing, his belongings, including his phone, glasses, and flip-flops, were found near the hole, strangely undamaged, as if gently placed rather than violently scattered, a detail that fueled widespread disbelief in the official explanation. Then came the discovery that transformed this case from tragic to truly bizarre. Taped to the back of Rey's computer was a handwritten note, written in tiny print, containing cryptic references to movies, secret societies, business figures, and philosophical ideas, a note that read more like a coded message or manifesto than a suicide letter, and one that never directly expressed despair, apology, or farewell, leaving investigators and analysts struggling to understand its meaning. Despite these deeply troubling details, authorities ultimately ruled Rey Rivera's death a suicide, concluding that he jumped from the roof of the Belvedere, yet this conclusion raised far more questions than it answered, because not only was the physics of the jump highly questionable, but Rey had no documented history of severe mental illness, no known suicidal ideation, and was actively planning future projects, trips, and career moves, making the idea of suicide feel profoundly disconnected from the man his loved ones knew. Adding another layer of mystery was the behavior of Porter Stansberry and his company, who reportedly placed a gag order on employees, instructing them not to speak to police or media, and who never publicly explained the phone call that lured Rey out of his home that night, a silence that cast a long shadow over the investigation and sparked speculation of insider knowledge or hidden conflicts. Conspiracy theories quickly took root. Some suggested Rey uncovered financial wrongdoing, others believed he was involved in secret societies, while some theorized he was lured to the Belvedere and murdered, his death staged to resemble a fall, especially given inconsistencies in the medical examiner's report, which noted injuries that didn't fully align with a straightforward fall from such height. The Belvedere itself became a symbol of the mystery, a towering structure with multiple access points, restricted areas, and complex layouts that would have been difficult for an outsider to navigate unnoticed. raising questions about how Rey gained roof access at all. As the years passed, the case refused to fade, resurfacing repeatedly through documentaries, podcasts, and renewed public interest, particularly after Alison Rivera spoke openly about her belief that her husband did not take his own life, describing a man who was hopeful, loving, and deeply invested in their future, not someone preparing for death. Psychologically, the Rey Rivera case forces us to confront uncomfortable realities, how ambition, pressure, and fear can intersect, how truth can become fragmented when powerful interests remain silent, and how official conclusions can fail to satisfy when key questions remain unanswered. Legally, it highlights the limitations of investigations that rely too heavily on assumptions rather than exhaustive reconstruction, and emotionally, it reminds us that closure is not always granted to those left behind. Today, nearly 2 decades later, the hole in the Belvedere roof has been repaired, the room cleaned, and life has moved on, yet the mystery remains intact, because no definitive explanation has ever bridged the gap between evidence and conclusion, leaving Rey Rivera suspended in history between accident, suicide, and something far darker. And now, as we step away from the shadowed halls of the Belvedere and reflect on everything this case represents, we are left with a chilling realization that some mysteries endure not because answers don't exist, but because the truth may be inconvenient, obscured, or forever lost to silence. Thank you for joining me on this deep exploration of Inside the Rey Rivera Mystery, the body in the Belvedere. And as we close this story, remember this: when a life ends under circumstances this strange, this unresolved, and this contradictory, the question isn't just how someone died, but why the answers never fully add up. And until that question is honestly confronted, Rey Rivera's final moments will continue to haunt the rooftop where truth seemed to fall through the cracks and disappear.